What is going on YouTube? I hope all is well and that you've had a wonderful weekend. It's the first of the week for me. I got a day off finally, so here I am trying to do a little bit more work, I guess. Um, I'm going to kind of show you how to source all the parts for a guitar amplifier. It kind of dawned on me when I was what I should do next, what we should talk about next. So I was mentioning that it's best to have all the parts for the amplifier in your possession first before you start doing the layout. So it kind of just made sense that we go through and talk a little bit more about this and how you can go to electronics, antique electronic supply, Tube Depot, and a plethora of other places to source all your parts to actually build the amplifier. Scheme It is nice in that it actually does create a BOM list for you, bill of materials. I haven't really played too much with it because I usually just refer to this and kind of get a count in my head and then order the part. But I'm sure that there's a way you can conglomerate the number of resistors into total counts. But you can also buy the parts directly from DigiKey, which DigiKey is who provides the Scheme It software. So you can do that too if you want to get all these parts from them. So anyway, I've already built the thing. You can see the cart's already full. Oh my goodness, excuse me. But you just kind of get an idea. You start here and you go, okay, I have a 1 meg resistor there. It's probably the only one that's in this amplifier, and I'm pretty sure it is. Then you go on here and you go to resistors. And you select that number of resistors that you need from the drop down. Obviously paying attention to the wattage and the type. Obviously, if you want to use carbon comp, you can. If you want to use carbon film, you can. Or if you want to use metal film, you can. Whatever it is you want to use, you can use. But you go into the thing, you pick what you need to get, and you get it. I find it, however, to be easier to just start at the top and go down. So you go into amplifier parts. And in there, Antique Electronics Supply is a little slow. Sorry. You know that you're going to need a jewel lamp for your indicator lamp. If you're using that style of indicator lamp, or if you want to use that style of indicator lamp, there's a couple different options you have. So select the color and the quantity. Obviously you only need one. This is the fuse that I use. You can use a different one if you want. I don't like this base for the dial lamp. You can use a different one. You will need these guys here. It's not listed anywhere on here that you will need those, but you need that for the star ground point. There's a couple other points where they could be helpful to have some of these. So buy a package of those. You need a receptacle, obviously. That's what's right over here. So you'll need one of those. If you're going to build the whole amp and you need to get corners, you can do that. Or you can just buy the whole box from someone else. You'll need 632 screws. I like using stainless steel 632 screws with the Nylock locking nuts. So I buy those off of like Amazon or eBay or something like that, and 3/8 inch is generally long enough. So 3/8 inch is a good size to go with. That'll do 9/10 of the work that you need to do, but they're not terribly expensive. A package of 5 is 65 cents, so you'll need a couple packages of them at least, because you do need to use these for the standoffs, which the standoffs I think are on the next page if I'm not mistaken. If you don't mind, there we go. Okay, where are the standoffs? So you got some hex nuts, you got some Keps nuts. Anyway, there's some standoffs here. You can use 3/4 inch or 1/2 inch. Let's see, are they going to be here? No, of course not. Anyway, for 3-inch chassis, I use 3/4 inch standoffs. For smaller chassis, I use 1/2 inch standoffs. And they're just like aluminum hex nuts that you can screw in with these guys here that holds the turret board up off the amplifier for you. And then you go down the list. So then you go to capacitors. You know you need to get some capacitors for this thing. I use F&T. So you can select this drop-down menu here and dial out what you're looking for. So if you know that you need 0.22 UF or whatever, you can do that. Or you can just go by brand. So going in by brand here, it's taking its due time. 500 volt, that's what I prefer to use for all of the power section. If you can find 500 volt for all these other capacitors here, that's great. I prefer 500 volt if you can find it. 450 volt is common as well, but if you can find it, that's great. So 30 UF, and then you need 2 of those and 2 22s. I do not like cap cans. They're great because they do condense kind of all of these things down into one little spot, but they're a little more pricey, and if any one section of it goes bad, you're replacing the whole thing. So to me, it's just kind of I don't bother with it. You're going to need a 100 volt. I think this is it here. No. So we need a 100 UF 50 volt for that location there, and I know that they got one. It's just not listed here. So wherever there it is. Oh no, that one's too big. That one will work though. But there it is right here. 100 UF 100 volt. That one will work. It doesn't have to be a 50 volt like it says here. It can be 100 volt. So that's the one I actually used. Now for the coupling capacitors, you got some other options. For the coupling caps, I prefer using the Zozos. I think they offer, I don't know, it's up to you. Sozo is great. I use the next gen yellows and the 500 PF capacitor that's right here. I use this guy right here. It's rather pricey. You don't have to go with, the Sozo stuff, but let's see here. Let's see what our options kind of are. So the silver mica, if you watch the Psionic Audio stuff on his YouTube channel, he does not like these. I've never had a problem with them, but then again, I never used them in like the position that other. I don't use them in this position here. I use them like this in this position, which I don't think is as critical. I have not had a problem with them, but you can use the Mallory's, the 150s. There's nothing wrong with these, and at 99 cents a piece, they're pretty hard to beat in price. I don't like orange drops, although you can use orange drops. I think they have a sound to them. I'm not a fan of it. Obviously, if you want to save a lot more money, you can go with the generic stuff, polypropylene. I think there's another version. It's polyester. So polyester and polypropylene have different sounds to them, but 630 volt if you want to get there. You'll notice I say 450 volt here for most of these. As long as it is rated above the voltage that would ever be seen there, that's fine. It's highly unlikely that you're going to get anything more than 450 volts, so 450 volt is fine, although 500 volt is cool too if you can get that. So yeah, I use the Zoso Next Gen Yellows, but you can use the Mallory's if you want. They're really affordable, or you can even go cheaper and get some of these other guys here. I haven't had any problems with these guys either. They are a little bit bigger. Obviously, the higher the voltage, the bigger they generally are. So the Zozos or whatnot, I think they're 500 volt, but they're almost 3 times the cost too. So totally up to you, but just a consideration when you think about where you're looking to go with your coupling capacitors. So that's what I like using for my power section and for this section here. This one here, F&T does not make one, so Sprague or Sprague or however you want to pronounce it does. Unfortunately, Antique Electronics Supply does not have many options for Sprague. They don't have that particular one, and the only one that they did have was from MOD. I'm not a fan of MOD. I think it's kind of a gimmick, but they do make these things. If you want to use them, you can. They're very, very cheap. So, 25 UF 50 volt is 65 freaking cents. So you can use that for this position here if you want. It's up to you. I use Sprague. They're a little bit more expensive, but whatever you need, you can get it at least to get this thing up and running. So there's that. Going on down the line, the diodes and rectifiers. There is a couple diodes in here. So the the 1N4007s. It's just the general purpose one here, 1N400X. The X, they're not locking you into the 7s because the 7 has to do with the voltage rating. 1000 volts is just fine. You get that and you're good to go. 25 cents a piece. You only need 2 of them. So there's that. Going on down further, you'll need enclosures and chassis. You got to find a chassis. You don't have to get it from Antique Electronic Supply. The ones that I use come from another vendor. I like thicker chassis. Hammond, unfortunately, their chassis are kind of thin, and I think the one I want is down at the bottom right here. Yep. It's 17 by 8 by 3 is a good recommendation if you're going to build this particular circuit here. The spacing is great, the size is great. It's an overall great size to use, but it's not very thick. It's, I think, 1.5 millimeters or maybe 2 millimeters. I can't remember exactly, but it is a little flimsy, which is great because it's easy to work on, but it's not as robust. So that is the trade-off. The other company that I go with, I can't get it in 3-inch wide, but I'm finding I like it in 3-inch. I use this to do my prototyping with, but I like the thicker chassis options that some of the other companies make. But this will get you down the road and give you a nice project box to work in, and it's $33, so it's not too bad. Obviously, if you go with a, they don't have one on this particular one, but they have some that are pre-drilled. Let's see here on some of these other pages, and they're much more expensive. $78 for a 5E3 style. These are steel, obviously. $75.95 for 5F2. Here's a JTM 45. I mean, you can buy this one and you can build. Oh, here's an 18-watt TMB or a tremolo version. You can buy either of these. This is based off of an 18-watt design, so in theory it would drop right into one of these. It would have extra holes that you're not using though. That's the downer. But $88 to $104, it kind of starts taking it out of range. So that's why I use blank chassis and drill them myself, and then I can put only the holes that I want in it to be there. So you go down the list, you just keep looking for all the different things that you need. Jacks and plugs. Obviously you're going to need a couple of input jacks. I like using Cliff jacks. They're a little more expensive, but I think they make good jacks. If you wouldn't mind, there you go. Mono stereo. You can use stereo for the input. Sometimes I like using stereo for the input because it does give you extra switching options. Dr. Pepper, yummy. I prefer using the internal threaded stuff like this one here. You can use the external stuff if you want, but I use the solder style ones. You can go with mono. You only need 2 of them to build this amplifier, so select 2 and add it to the cart. You can use different jacks, of course, if you want. I guess the other thing, knobs. You're going to need to select a knob for your potentiometers. And if you would load, please. Antique Electronics, as I mentioned already, is kind of slow. I like these knobs here. These are the ones I use. You can use whatever one you want, though. There's a bunch of different options that you can select, of course. If you want to make it look more like a Marshall, by all means, go for that. So, what else do you need? You'll need potentiometers. It's kind of next in line here. So, potentiometers. There's a couple different considerations. I like alpha, 3/8-inch bushings. I like the alpha with the solid shafts. To me, these ones have the right feel for when you're turning the knob, and they have the right taper for building a guitar amp. Obviously, you need 2 audios, so you need one here, here, and you need this one here, which it doesn't state it here, but this is actually a dual gang or stereo potentiometer, if you will. So that one's kind of confusing in its way that I laid it out, but so here you'll need an audio taper for this position here. So you need a 1 meg, so you select 1 meg from the drop down, and then you'll need a linear pot as well. So there's the linear version. You'll need a 1 meg for that, so you select that, and then I believe the dual gang is down here at the bottom. So this is what the dual would look like. So you select that, and I believe it was 1 meg over here that I have. Yeah, 1 meg. So again, you select that, and then you need a 250K as well in linear. So you find a linear. I don't think that's the one. Yeah, no, you want this guy right here. alpha linear 3/8 inch positioning. So you find 250K, and that would be for this guy here, the high cut portion of this circuit. So go through, select those. What I find is great about Antique Electronics Supply is I can pretty much find like 7 to 8 tenths of all of the parts that I need to build an amplifier in one source. Whereas someplace like Tube Depot, while I think they have some better options for some of the parts, I can't find 100% of what I need there. It's more like 6 to 7 tenths of all the parts I need at Tube Depot. So here I can find more of all the parts that I want and need, and then some of the parts that I can't find, I go to Tube Depot to buy. What I also like is that Antique Electronics Supply does ship a lot faster. I think they have same-day shipping on most everything, whereas Tube Depot isn't quite as quick on shipping. If I were to order this thing today, not at 4:51 p.m., but if I were to order all these parts before noon, I could almost bet that I would have them before the end of the week. So that's kind of why I like that. Whereas with Tube Depot, I don't think they have same-day shipping. Maybe they've changed things a little bit, and they do, but I kind of find it just takes a little longer to get the parts. So in either case, enough of that. Kind of went over the chassis a little bit, I think. Yeah, we looked at the chassis, potentiometers, resistors. So obviously you go through the resistors and you select that. Switches. This is another big one. I use a double pole single throw switch. I like Carling, and there's a couple different switches that you will need though. The mute switch here, which is actually located over here when it's actually built. I like the Carling, this one right here. It's a single pole double throw, so it's just a 2-position, and it's got 3 poles. One of the poles you won't even need, but because it's for us, we're just going to wire it as an on-off switch. It's cheap. You can get the beauty nut for this if you want. That's this here, the dress nut. It's 55 cents, so why not, right? So if you want to make this look prettier, you can get that as well. But for the power, double pole single throw is what we're looking for. And if you please load, I use this switch right here. I don't like this particular switch. You can't use this one anyway, it's a 3-position, but this is a long bat. They make a short bat version too, which is this one here. This one to me just feels cheaper. I don't know, it just doesn't have the feel that I like. This one's just rated for 6 amps, and it's plenty for the amplifier, but I prefer, if I can, to use the 15 amp. It just buys you a little bit more insurance that the switch itself is going to last a little longer, I guess, with the type of current demand that you're going to have on it, and it's only a few cents more. So, but there's obviously different switches that you can use. If you want to use a rocker switch that's lighted, you more than you know, you can use other switches like the lighted rocker switch. Obviously, if you want to use something like that, so you don't even need a jewel lamp if you were to use this one. I don't like rocker switches. I don't know. They just don't do it for me. There's something about flicking a bat switch up that just does it for me. I don't know. So that's up to you. But, you know, try to get something rated for higher than you think you need. I'm not sure what this switch is rated for. I know that they use them in 100 watt amps, so I'm sure it's more than high enough. I don't think it actually tells you what it's rated for. Yeah, whatever. In either case, we know that'll work. So there's that. And then you just keep going on down the line. Transformers and chokes, they do have the transformers you need here. The power transformer is the single most expensive part that you'll probably need to buy for this. Sorry, replacement fender. You need one that's actually for a Marshall. It's basically an 18 watt Marshall that we're kind of dealing with here. So transformer handler, guitar Marshall replacement for Marshall. 18 watt, it's listed right on the top there. It's $106. Again, single most expensive part that you'll need to buy for the amplifier. And then obviously you'll need the output. Again, same thing for the output transformer. You get the 18 watt version. It's an 18 watt Marshall more or less that we're building. So you can get that. It's like 43 bucks, 42 bucks, something like that. So after you've gone through the whole of the list and you've kind of, you need to get wire too, by the way. Let's talk about the wire real quick. There's 2 types of wire. Well, I'm going to say there's 3 types of wire. So pre-tinned, and then they have the non-tinned stuff, so it doesn't have that silver look to it. It's just, you know, your normal stranded wire that you twist. I don't even think they offer that style here. Yeah, here you go, stranded. It's just not tinned. But in either case, 600 volt, 50 foot is enough to build a thing. 22 gauge is perfectly fine to build all the circuit stuff, all the interconnect stuff for all of these things. The only thing that you need to use a different gauge for is for the heater circuit. So you connect for the, again this isn't correct, but off the 6.3 volt heaters, you run to each of the tubes, right? That one you should get 18 gauge. I prefer, if I can find it, I prefer Teflon coated wire. I don't think they offer Teflon coated wire here at Antique Electronics Supply, and if they do, they don't make it very clear, but you can get it in different colors. You should probably get at least a couple different colors. Do not get, I'm not saying do not get solid core. There are some people that swear by solid core wire. The problem with solid core wire is that when you bend it, if you bend it and you're not happy with where you bent it at, and then you go to straighten it out, you can end up in a situation where it will break when you go to bend it again, let's say. So it doesn't do very well with bending back and forth too many times. Whereas the pre-tinned stranded wire, like this stuff here, is great because it is essentially solid core wire because it's tinned all the way through, so it's all the strands are tinned together, and it does a little bit better with bending. But 22 gauge is great for that. 50 feet, 600 volt, perfectly good wire. I do like, if I can find it, Teflon coated wire. It just does better with the heat from the iron. It doesn't melt back, or, you know, doesn't discolor when you get it hot and stuff like that. So, but I suggest getting at least 2 different colors. 3 would probably be better. But that, again, is up to you. You can use all the same color too if you want. 50 feet is enough to do an entire amp for sure. But it's definitely helpful to have multiple colors for different parts of the amp. But for the heaters, you do need to use some sort of 18 gauge wire. You don't have to use this coated stuff, but find 18 gauge if you can. I do not like solid core wire, I'm finding, even though there are some people that swear by it. So just another consideration. But let's look at the cart and see what we got. So grand total, this includes all the parts you need to make this amplifier work. I got even the bulb. No, that's not the bulb. I think it's one of the few things that are missing here is the bulb for the indicator lamp. So you can see I got the dial lamp. I use the more expensive one. I like this particular one here. I went with an amber jewel. I just picked a color. It doesn't have to be that color. You can get whatever color you want. All the sockets, transformers. I even got the tubes here. This isn't the right tube. They didn't have any of the 12AX7s in stock, so this is just more of a placeholder. There's the standoffs, the switches. This 3-position switch here is for the impedance selector. I like this switch. It's a rather expensive one. They have another one that's much cheaper, will work just as fine or just as well for like $3 or something like that. So I even got the wire in there. I got 3 different wires. I got 18 gauge for the heater, and I can pick 2 colors for the other things. I got all the resistors I need there. Turrets and the turret boards, those are also options you need to get. If you don't have a turret stake, you may need to get one, although you can make one with stuff that you probably already have sitting around at the house. It's like $12 for a turret stake kit, so whatever. $508.60 is the total cost to build this amp. I think that includes everything you need to build this amp sans an indicator lamp, which whatever, it's a couple of dollars, so no biggie. I would say after tax and shipping, you're probably just a little under $600. So that kind of gives you an idea of why some of these amplifiers are so expensive when you buy something from, say, like Carr or Dr. Z. And I guess we'll use Dr. Z as an example of, you know, of the business model of why more people aren't building amplifiers and kind of how the cost is driven. Obviously, Dr. Z offers pretty nice amps for a rather affordable price. You know, $1,400 to $2,000 I think is what most of his amps go for, which is a hell of a deal when you consider that like a Fender Tone Master series amplifier is selling for like $1,000. I can tell you right now that a Dr. Z amp will eat the pants off of, is that the way to put it, I guess? Eat the pants off of, or beat the pants off of. Either way, a Dr. Z is a much better amp than many of the Fender offerings are that are PCB based or whatever, but it's not that he makes the world's greatest amps. He's got his downsides too, but things like this I don't like. I don't like seeing that kind of stuff. But he does clean work for the most part. This one doesn't have his characteristic Z zigzag that he does on his wires, which is kind of weird. I don't know if this is a later production one or a late version or late production, but he did at one point do that thing that drives me up the wall. That thing you should never do. Don't do that. So Dr. Z does that kind of stuff sometimes. You can see here he's got some wires that just lay randomly across the top of things. But here's another Dr. Z build, and you can see his classic, zigzag bend that he puts in on all of his wires. So he does good work, but you can see it's a little messy down here. It's pretty tight. This is a pretty tight chassis for all this, but it's not the greatest work. But he has to meet that dollar amount. How can you offer this amp for, $1,500, $1,700 or whatever it might be, and still make money off of it, right? If it costs about this much to buy it at our level, maybe Dr. Z can knock a couple $100 off of that because he gets, bulk discounts and stuff like that perhaps. But what does it cost to run his building? He's got to, employ people. And for those of you who are not too business savvy or have never ran a business, whatever you're paying somebody per hour, it actually costs you just about double that to actually pay them, between your Social Security taxes and all that crap that you got to do and whatnot. If you're paying somebody $20, for instance, it's going to cost you closer to $40 to actually employ them. And then, of course, the cost of the buildings and the insurances and the electricity and all the other utilities and whatnot. So, if Dr. Z is paying somebody, I don't know, I'm hoping he's paying him at least $25 on the low end. He can't afford to have much turnaround because he needs people to build these things his way every day. So is he paying him $30, $40 an hour? Yes, I see you. Who knows? But, it costs him $40 to $80 an hour to have these people in his service to build these amplifiers for him. That adds up pretty quick. So how is he able to get these out the door for the price he does? Well, he has to economize somewhere. So you can kind of see in some of these things where he's just saving a couple dollars here and there. Things like that kind of drive me up the wall, or things like this drive me up the wall. It's economizing in a way. So you got to find a way to cut the corner somewhere. But that's how you can build this amp for roughly half the price of what you can buy one for from somewhere else, which is probably what is helping to drive the DIY amp maker community, I guess. People are starting to get smart enough to be able to figure out how to do this on their own, and then they can, there's places like Antique Electronics Supply and several others, which you can source all the parts, or most all the parts, at least from one place. And then with the advent of YouTube and all that stuff, and self-help videos kind of like this, you can go a long way into being a complete amateur in terms of electronic skill and ability, and still make a working amp that you don't kill yourself on the way there, and do it affordably too. I was actually shocked when I started pricing some of these things out. I was like, okay, well shoot, that's reasonably affordable. But what do I pay myself to build these amps? Well, how much do you want to make per day? I would imagine $400 a day is what I would probably be wanting to make on the low end. $500 a day would probably be nice. So if it takes me 3 days to build an amp, that's $1,500, right? So by the time you get through this, you probably should double that price to make up for that. So you're running about $2,500 or so to sell this amplifier in the real world. And doubling the cost on this just ensures that you can rebuy all the parts and then you've actually made a little bit of money off of the off the stuff to pay for utilities, electricity, tool wear, and all that fun stuff. So is $400 a day, $500 a day a fair price to pay somebody in labor? Well, that's probably what it actually costs you anyway to employ somebody to build these amps. So that's why these things are so expensive. If you buy a Bob Jika amp, you're probably looking at 10 grand. Some of the car amps, Soldano, well, his older amps when he used to be making them by hand anyway, you know, $4,500 for some of those things. You know, Lord knows how many people it took to do it, how much per hour he's paying, but you gotta pay the piper in one way or another. So if you don't want to put a price on what it cost you in labor to make the amp, you can get them really, really cheap. So anyway, I hope this kind of helps a little bit. I think we're getting close to the point where we can actually start stuffing a turret board and building an amplifier. But stick around. I hope this helps you out a little bit, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.